president, according to the Constitution, delivers to Congress the State of the Union. It could be an address. It could also be on paper. Of course, it's been tradition for as time began, George Washington began it, to deliver it as an address to Congress in which he says almost perennially the State of the Union is good. There was one president who bucked that trend, and that was Gerald Ford, 1975. Take a listen.
And I must say to you that the State of the Union is not good. Millions of Americans are out of work. Recession and inflation are eroding the money of millions more.
All right, he went on to lament the national debt was, in his words, a staggering $500 billion. It is now 60 times that. George Will remembers that speech, and he's here with us, NewsNation senior contributor, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for tonight. Would the president be wise to acknowledge how the American people feel?
I think he would, but I think he also ought to be able to acknowledge that he has a success in Ukraine. Doesn't look like a success. You rightly said this is a split-screen night for America. They're going to see the decorousness of the State of the Union and the carnage going on in Ukraine. However, Mr. Biden and Mr. Blinken, as Secretary of State, have done a really tremendous job in rallying the allies. Had a tremendous effect already in Germany, which has abandoned 40 years of reluctance to be punching its weight in European and global affairs. So I think the president should not take a victory lap, but he ought to say the United States is leading, which is true.
Yeah, his line was America is back, right? That's sort of what he ran on in terms of American foreign policy in Europe. In a way, and it is not a fair comparison, but President Biden gets up tonight to talk about President Zelensky of Ukraine. President Zelensky is the guy who said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. How do you compete with that movie-like character leadership when you've got to get up in front of the Congress here, and President Biden not exactly perhaps known for his grandiose public speaking appearances?
Well, you associate yourself with this man who is behaving heroically. The London Symphony, the London Philharmonic, in its Saturday concert, began its concert by playing the Ukrainian national anthem. The Brandenburg Gate in Berlin was bathed in the yellow and blue colors of the Ukraine flag. These matter, these symbols. And the president will have, I'm sure, someone from Ukraine, probably the ambassador and or his wife in the gallery tonight. That matters for us to associate with them.
Yeah, we saw a lot of the congressmen wearing Ukraine pins. In the light, back to the domestic issues, that kitchen table issues for America. You think about 2020 is the pandemic. It was a terrible year. 2021 was a dark and worse year. Inflation started to roar. Now 2022, we don't even have baseball to talk about. What does the president say to strike what the White House says will be an optimistic tone without appearing tone deaf?
I think he's most apt to appear tone deaf if he does what they usually do, which is go down a long laundry list of all the agencies in his government getting their priorities into the speech. That's why this speech is usually written in November as it passes through this process, and it turns out to be an enormous sludgy pudding without a theme. He would be well advised tonight to say this is a huge moment in the post-Second World War history of our society. And let's talk about that tonight and save the laundry list, which no one remembers anyway.
Interesting quote from David Axelrod, obviously the famed political strategist for President Obama, who so rightly understood the tone of America in 2008. We're going to put it up, begging President Biden for humility. This is an op-ed in the New York Times, a humble tone during the State of the Union to highlight the progress we have made without fully acknowledging the hard road we have traveled and the distance we need to go would seem off-key and out of touch. At the same time, the president is going to say so many of the sacrifices that America are making, especially as it relates to gas prices and energy, is because of my clean agenda. It is worth it.
Well, I do think this is not a night for bragging. This is a night for sobriety. It's a night to talk to the American people seriously. because they see what's going on in the world, and they know that a war in Europe is incompatible with the peace that has made our American prosperity possible. And if we lose the peace there, we're going to lose it here also.
What is a win for tonight? We have you back after the speech.
A win for tonight is Biden talks sense to the American people. Adlai Stevenson once said, there are no gains without pains. Tell that to the American people. And that we're going through difficulties, some of which inflation, he can reasonably say, is somewhat the result of the reaction we've had to the pandemic to jumpstart the economy again. We overdid it. Mistakes happen. Let's get on with life. But tonight, it seems to me, 67% of the American people in a recent poll said they did not think of Biden as a strong leader. This is a chance. He's president. He's commander-in-chief. That's the most important job a president has. He can look at
Yeah, commander-in-chief during an international crisis when he has that opportunity.
a big international crisis.
Yeah, right, yeah. Biggest since the Cuban Missile Crisis, if you listen to Marco Rubio. Mr. Will, good to see you as always here throughout the night. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.